You're on 94.1 FM 3WBC with Jerry Gergis presenting the Egypt Australia Radio Show, a weekly English edition covering local and international news sourced from Australia, Egypt and the Greater Middle East and North Africa region. The program affectionately covers the arts, culture, trade and politics. And now here's Jerry Gergis presenting the Egypt Australia Radio Show, 94.1 FM 3WBC, the voice of the Inner East.
Okay.
The Desert Fruit Company, formerly known as Tamara Plantation, is located near Alice Springs, Central Australia, part of Northern Territory. Producers of fine quality eating dates coming into harvest in mid-February. Tonight, I have the absolute pleasure in speaking to Shaun O'Connor, Director from the Desert Fruit Company. Hi and welcome.
G'day, Jerry. G'day, everyone else. How are you?
Thank you so much for being on our radio program, 94.1 FM. Now, tell us about how you got involved with the Desert Fruit Company, Shaun.
That's an interesting story, Jerry. Well, I like to think so. But to be frank, I'm not a date farmer, and until about 5 years ago, I had never been to a date orchard before. But I returned back to Alice Springs. I'm from Alice Springs originally. Went away for a career, did that sort of thing, come back to Alice and was really looking to sort of more live my values and do the things I was more interested in and less of the career stuff, which I had an interest in, but it was, taking me away. So that included anything to do with our desert, the flora, the fauna, the indigenous culture, gardening, etc. I had a friend who was connected to the farm, and through his connection, I visited and just immediately fell in love. And it aligned with a lot of my interests. And the clincher, though, I must say, for the benefit of those watching and listening, was when I first tried a Barhee date when it was in the root pad stage.
Absolutely.
I mean, mind blown. So it was love at first taste. And so I helped out as part of the cooperative, as a cooperative member. I became a member.
Yeah.
And the cooperative owns the Desert Fruit Company, which is our commercial entity to manage the date orchard. And love to help out, and we've got a great collective of knowledge, and we lean on that collectively to advance the cooperative and the date farm. And I just got drawn into it more and more. And we had one of our founding members leave, and they left a great hole because they were pivotal in getting to the date farm and the cooperative itself to where it was at when I joined. So then very quickly I became a date grower, a director of the Desert Fruit Company, which just happens to be the second largest, I think I'm still correct, commercial date farm in Australia, which sort of speaks to the nascent nature of the industry. And then from that also got involved to be on the board of the Australian Date Growers Association.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, fell into it, but always was aligned with the things I'm interested in. It's been a wonderful journey.
Shaun, the plantation initially had 1,000 palm trees. Has it grown from that number? How many palm trees have you got now?
Yeah, that's not a simple answer to that, other than to mention at the end exactly how many we've got. But I understand the requisite
94.1 3WBC, informing and entertaining Melbourne's Inner East. Go to 3wbc.org.au to find out more. 94.1 3WBC.
Jim Trudi Luedi did, and they established this orchard back in 91. Well, it it needed a financial commitment, as I understand. I could be wrong, and that roughly equated to 1,000 trees, as you rightly mentioned. Then I realised, looking at how many rows we've got and how many trees are in a row, that didn't quite come to 1,000 ever, just shy of. But our current number of trees is far below that. So there's some gaps in the orchard, about 300 trees shy. So we're actually, at that stage, we're about 750. And then one of our pivotal members, who I mentioned previously, who had left, Mr. Ben Wall, and with the other farmers and 2 directors as well, I might acknowledge Kim Mackay and Dennis Bolam, went about and planted another 50. So that was a milestone for us, because it signified a growth of the orchard. And it's very labour intensive, but they heroically dug off the pups off the side, which is great that we've got that resource we can utilise, and they're clones of the parents, so you know what you're getting. And they put in, and of that 50 included 5 more males.
Right. Okay.
For the pollen.
Now, we know that you did mention it's the plantation is one of the 2 commercial date plantation in Australia. Alice Springs is what we know, the plantation that was established by Jim and Trudi Luedi in 91. And the second is, as we know, Gurra Downs Date Company, which is in Riverland, RENMARK. And there is a small, not as commercial, but Eulo, which is in southwest Queensland, the Palm Grove Date Farm and a winery. That's a private enterprise. And I know between you and South Australia, like you mentioned, and quite rightly, the 2 commercial plantations in Australia and doing well. I don't know how to say this, but we love date, and especially the Barhee, which is, it sounds like the word Barhee meaning next to the sea, it's like a seashore kind of thing. So we love that state, the date that's in that state, the mid-jewel when it's brown and it's absolute in its perfect taste as well, but the crunchiness, the freshness of the Barhee, we just love. We just buy it, so we can't get enough. And the one thing that differentiates your plantation from South Australia is the timeline, that when the fruit is available. And the next question is, I just want to know what percentage of your fruit is sent to overseas, first and foremost. Shaun?
Sure. Look, just a small correction, Jerry. We're the 2nd largest commercial date farm, but there are other commercial interests. You rightly mentioned Dave and the family down at Gurra Downs, who are the largest, but there's other people, Riverland Dates, Steve Brewer, and others. But as for overseas, that's an interesting one. There's an undersupply in the domestic market, for starters, and potentially there's a premium overseas, and we're alternate seasons as well, so that's where the attraction is. But us as a collective, so we're a cooperative, the Tamara Date Cooperative, so we've got some values that we espouse and are guided by. And one of those key values is around sustainability. And so it doesn't make sense for us to explore sending overseas, particularly with the state of the climate and just chasing a bit of extra revenue when there's undersupply here. But we've got some great partnerships with some wholesalers who are very helpful and help us take the bulk of the fruit. And one of those did send some fruit overseas, I believe to Qatar.
You're on 94.1 FM, 3WBC, with Jerry Gurgis presenting the Egypt Australia Radio Show, a weekly English edition covering local and international news sourced from Australia, Egypt and the Greater Middle East and North Africa region. The program affectionately covers the arts, culture, trade and politics. And now here's Jerry Gurgis presenting the Egypt Australia Radio Show. 94.1 FM, 3WBC, the voice of the Inner East.
And as to why, I haven't asked Jeff about that, but you know, that's up to the wholesaler and the buyer. You know? Yeah. There's certainly interest, though, Jerry. We do get a fair bit of overseas interest. Yes.
Shaun, we love, and I don't know how many times we say we love our Yellow Barhee variety. Are they ready for delivery in February, or you know, and how many kilos in a box, just to go over the some of the? And I've got another question that I will ask later on, but let's start with when is the Barhee going to be ready for us to eat?
I'm getting excited just thinking about it too. You know, I particularly love that Rutab stage before Tamar. That's great. Yeah. Look, we generally say mid-February is the average, but we get a seasonal influence that can swing at a couple of weeks either side.
Yes.
So this stage they're a little bit later, so we're probably thinking about early March.
Right. Okay.
And the crop's looking, well, I'm going to touch wood as I say this because of the challenges with weather, but it's looking really good. And in fact, it's the year of the medjool here. Oh, they're gone crazy. But as for availability, what we find, because we're essentially a hobby farm. We don't work full time. In fact, I've got a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday in town, and swing out there. We've got a couple of farmers that live out there, but they're sort of half time because of what we can afford. Yeah. And so it's very much hobby. So what I'm getting to is, and I mentioned those relationships we've got with the wholesalers. For us, that's an easy way to move the dates.
Yes.
That being said, we have such a friendship base, supporter base that we foster, and we often show that appreciation by doing the retail element at the end of the season, and it's the mixed dates. You know, a box of 10 to 12 different dates in it. And the reality is, because that's, you know, labor intensive, slower. So as far as the yellow then, and I think where we're getting to is, where can we get them? We've got we've got a wholesaler in Melbourne, we've got a wholesaler in Sydney. And you know, any decent Middle Eastern independent grocers, when they're in season, they'll show up there. And I'm aware of Sacker's Brothers in Melbourne, who stock them as well. So that'll be the way to go. But also, you know, things could change. And I think maybe what your viewers and listeners might be interested in is how to engage with us. And we've, you know, we're a bit ad hoc on that. But what we do like to do is, about quarterly, is produce a nice single-page newsletter. And send that out to people, let them know how the season's going, and as it gets closer, when they'll be ready, and how to pricing and how to purchase. So if people are interested in getting on that email list, if you're happy for me to make a plug.
Oh, absolutely.
Sales,
yes.
Right. Sales at desertfruitcompany.com.au. So SALES, sales.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. And then I'll, due to the nature of our system, I'll manually put that into our other software to put it into the database, so they'd send it out. We just do things quite simply.
All right. From memory, a box would have 4.5 kilos. Is that the right way?
That's right.
So it's 4.5 kilos. Yep.
Yeah. The easiest way we've found is to send it in the post packs, the Australian Post pre-packed bags.
Yes.
They're a 5 kilo limit, as long as it can fit in. So we've got some nice boxes. We put 4.5 in just to allow a bit of flex and you know, price it accordingly.
Yes.
And then send them out that way. Yeah.
The
interesting story.
Yes,
no, go ahead.
No, go. You go.
Well, speaking of that, you just reminded, we had an interest from a semi-major supermarket and wanting to stock them, and we entertained them and sent them a box of dates. And they reached out a couple of months later, wanting some dates, and we said we'd sent them. Long story short, 12 months later, nearly to the day, that post pack turned back up at our post office. And it was counter season, so we're out of season. We opened this up thinking, oh, what is it firstly? And oh my goodness, it's this box of dates we sent 12 months ago. And they were in such good condition because we had no dates left ourselves to eat. You know, we had this beautiful box of dates. So it was a bit of a learning experience, knowing how they handle and store.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's a rarity, of course, and not to disparage people from using our postal service. You know, the logistics on that side is phenomenal, and
yes,
it's a rare occurrence.
I tell our listeners every year, remind them that when you do get the Yellow Barhee dates, and if they go a little bit translucent on one side or a little bit, it's even sweeter.
That's the best stage, I think. You're right. Oh, that transition from the yellow to the brown, it's that spectrum in between.
Yes.
I think maybe a way to explain it to really get people to understand maybe the difference. The flavor develops, so different flavor, a bit more toffee, sweeter by orders of magnitude. But at that middle stage, it's almost like custard.
Yes,
so soft.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
And that's why we still love it, so much of it. And I know all of your yield, your crop for the year is almost, like you said, as you've explained, that it goes to the wholesalers. Just mention, I don't mind you mentioning your wholesalers in Melbourne again. I think we had and just when you mentioned the name, the internet slowed down.
Yeah, for the wholesaler.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't mention, but the Melbourne wholesaler said to say hello, and that's Emad Nasrallah.
Yes, I know Emad. Yes, I know Emad.
Yes. So we've had a long relationship with him. Great to deal with, and very upfront and supportive. And it's great to have somewhere for our dates to go, and they're appreciated. So yeah, it's a blessing.
I know the season at the moment we're looking at middle to late February, maybe early March, and we'll wait absolutely for that. I do remember there's a red variety. How's that coming along?
There is a red variety. There's two broad categories of red variety. Let me just make that distinction. There's one that I understand we don't have in Australia yet that is similar to the Barhee at Kalal stage, where it's crunchy and sweet.
Yes.
We've got one red variety in the orchard, but it's not a sweet date at that stage, but it develops into a very dark, almost black, slender date.
Yes.
Same texture as a medjool, a dry medjool.
Yes.
And almost has a banana-y flavour to it. One of my friends points out slightly different, a little bit prune-like, I thought.
Right. Yes.
But lovely nonetheless.
I think that's a right description.
Yeah. And they get pride of place in the mixed boxes because of their contrast, because they're so dark, you know.
Well, our listeners again wanted to know if we get the red in a natural state before they become medjool environment, where quite soft. So just wanted to have an update on that. And just a couple of other questions. We did mention to our listeners, how do we place an order? They can refer to the email, which is sales@desertfruitcompany, one word, .com.au, and text line and a landline as well.
Yeah, just the all we operate is the mobile, which is 0499 009 114.
Okay.
And please leave a message.
Yep, absolutely.
Otherwise, if it's an unfamiliar number, it might not get picked up. But I would encourage it via email, and that's the easiest for us and is really helpful.
Yes.
And then we can communicate and give you everything you need to know via that way,
Right.
including questions, because that allows me to get back to them at a convenient time, like I said, with other demands in life.
Yeah.
It's easier. It would be appreciated.
Sean, I sincerely want to say thank you so much for allocating the time and telling us what to expect very, very soon. Because honestly, we can't wait. We go through it. We come at this time of the year and we go, right, date season in February and date season in May. So we know when to get the Yellow Barhee from both plantation. We love it so much. Thank you so much. And I know you've mentioned the hard work that you guys put in. Hopefully, just a question, just top of my head. People do ask, because it's a co-op, can people come up from other states during pollination? Because I've seen pollination programs and I've seen other events happening at Alice Springs. Can they come up, and how do they get involved?
Yeah, look, they can, and you know, the first word in our mission statement is to share, and we encourage that. Obviously, it needs to be on our terms, and that's how it works.
Yep.
For us.
Yeah.
And via that email, and we have so many interesting.
You're on 94.1 FM 3WBC with Jerry Gurgis presenting the Egypt Australia Radio Show, a weekly English edition covering local and international news sourced from Australia, Egypt and the Greater Middle East and North Africa region. The program affectionately covers the arts, culture, trade and politics. And now here's Jerry Gurgis presenting the Egypt Australia Radio Show, 94.1 FM 3WBC, the voice of the Inner East.